Oh no. Oh no. Okay, good. Well, I don't know how that happened. I was muting myself this whole time. Sorry about that. Okay, so that won't be a very good recording. But anyway, so 2x squared minus 2x minus 2 equals 0. That's how it happens. And then what can I do to what is there anything I can factor from it? Actually, but I don't even need to factor anything. Is there anything I can divide out of both sides? Every number in the whole problem is an even number, like 0 is even, 2 is even, and 2 is even, and 2 is even. So if it's an even number, that means you can divide by 2, right? So let's go ahead and divide everything by 2. So first, let's divide this by 2, divide this by 2, divide this by 2, divide this by 2. How about dividing that by 2 as well? So now we're not doing problem number 2 anymore. We're doing problem number 1. Just kidding. You can't really divide the problem by 2, but the rest of it you can divide by 2 though. So x squared minus x minus 1 equals 0. So this should be easy. We should be able to factor this. What do you think? Is it possible to factor x squared minus x minus 1? Well, not really, because the only numbers that we can use are numbers that multiply to equal -1. What are the only two numbers that multiply to equal -1? The only two real numbers. Well, the only two integers, I mean, that equal -1. 1 times -1, right? But if I use 1 times -1, is that going to work or not? No, because what is 1 plus -1? 0. Do I have 0 x's in the middle? No, I don't have 0 x's in the middle. So those numbers, which are the only possible whole numbers that will work, they won't work. So this problem is not factorable in the ordinary way. So that means the only way I can solve it is with the quadratic equation. Why do we keep saying the quadratic equation? That makes me sound stupid. The only way I can solve it is with the quadratic formula. So by the way, all of these are quadratic equations. So you solve a quadratic equation by using the quadratic formula. So the quadratic formula is x. Okay, let me see if you can remember it. What's the first part of the quadratic formula? Negative b, right? So let me say the a, the b, the c. It's as easy as ABC. So what's a in that equation? 1. What's b? -1. And what's c? -1. So x is equal to negative what? Negative b, which is -1. Actually, I'm going to do it like this. I'm going to leave blank spaces, like Taylor Swift would like. So negative b plus or minus square root of b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. And then you tell me which number to put in each blank space. So what number should I put in the first blank space? 1, -1, or -1? -1, correct. Well, again, what number goes in the second blank space? Yeah. What number goes in the third blank space? It's -4ac, right? So a goes in the second in the next blank space, and what's the value of a? 1. And then c, right, which is -1. And then what goes in the last blank space in the bottom? 1. Correct. So what's a -1? +1. What's a -1 squared? Also a +1. And what's a -4 times a 1 times a -1? That's a +4, right? Okay, perfect. And then what's 2 times 1? 2. So this is going to equal 1 plus or minus radical 5 over 2. That. So those are the answers, except I think actually now in the year 2025, I think you can actually type in your answer with the plus and minus button. But in the old days, and it might still only accept this, you might have to answer your answers one at a time like this. 1 plus the radical 5 over 2, comma, 1 minus radical 5 over 2. Because there really are two separate answers. So if you're doing your homework, you can try putting in your answer like that, and then check the answer. And if it does not work, then that means you have to separate your answers like that. Does anybody have your homework in front of them and you want to try maybe? if you try it and it works, then let me know if you can do it the short way or the fast way. Wait, the short way or the fast way? I mean, the short way or the long way, I meant. Okay, let's go ahead and try 3. So do you love these quadratic equations? Let's try number 3. 3. X squared minus 10x plus 41 equals 0. Wow. So this one is also going to be difficult because can I factor it or not? At least can I factor it with ordinary whole numbers? Ordinary integers, I meant. Can I factor this with ordinary integers? Like 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and stuff like that? No, because I don't think there's any integers that multiply to equal 41 except for 1 and 41. But even if you add them or subtract them, you can't take 1 and 41, and you can't add them or subtract them to get negative 10. So factoring this one, at least factoring it with a regular ordinary whole number is not possible. It is possible to factor it with non-real numbers, but it's not possible to factor it with regular real numbers. So we have to use a quadratic formula. So let's see if we can do it this time without even having to tell you, without me writing down the A, B, and C. So it's going to be negative what? Negative. Okay, I'll skip that. I'll go to the next one. It's going to be negative something plus or minus what? Square root of what? Something squared minus 4 times something something all over 2 times something, right? What goes in the first blank space? Does 1 go in it, or does negative 10 go in it, or does 41 go into it? Yep. So remember, the first 2 numbers are actually both equal to b. So the middle number goes into both of the first 2 blank spaces. And then A and C, the first and last number, they go into the next 2 blank spaces. And then you end by putting the first number into the bottom. So it's B, B, and then it's AC, and then it's A again, like that. So it's like B, B, A, C, A. So B, B, A, C, A. Does that pronounce the word babaka? It's not exactly a word, but okay. So then negative, maybe in some language it's a word though, I don't know. Negative 10 is 10. Negative 10 squared is 100. And then negative 4 times 1 times 41, that's a big number. That's going to be negative 164. Wow, it's like 164 years ago. Wonder what was happening right here 164 years ago. What do you think was happening right here on this very spot 164 years ago? Any ideas? Well, 2 times 1 is 2. And then 100 minus 64 is negative 64. Wow, it's crazy. Square root of, now remember, how do you do a square root of a negative number? Anybody remember? You just take an I out of it. And then you do the square root of the number without the negative. So what's the square root of 64 without the negative? It'd be 8. And then just put an I beside it, over 2. What is 10 plus or minus 8i over 2? So when you're doing these answers on the computer, you have to separate it into the real fraction and the I fraction. So 10 divided by 2 is 5. That's called the real number. And then 8i divided by 2 is 4i. That's called the imaginary part. So there's a real part and the imaginary part. And then once again, I don't know if the computer has a plus and minus button in it that can work. So you might have to type your answer like this: 4 plus I, comma 4, 5 minus 4i, like that. So 5 plus 4i and then 5 minus 4i. But hopefully you can just put a plus or minus and put the whole answer in at once. Has anybody tried it yet? Good job, everybody. I'm actually I like that you're focusing on the class. It worked? Okay, sweet. That was so genius.
Problem Texas on to sit at work like
Hold on, right there. Well, I think you just needed a quadratic. Okay. That is perfect. Okay. Good job, everybody. Okay. Sweet. Now. Let's go to number, actually. We're gonna learn something different now. You ready? We're gonna learn about the standard form of a quadratic function. So, standard form of, I'm just gonna say Q for quadratic function. Standard form of quadratic function. It looks like this: a x plus b squared plus c, like that. A times x plus b squared plus c, and the number a, that tells you if it's going up or down. Up or down. The number b, we've learned this at some point before. This shifts it either left or right. And then this one shifts it up or down. Up or down. So I'm going to give you an example. If I have like 3 times x plus 5 squared plus 2, that one's going to go up because it has a positive in front of it. It's going to shift it left 5 units to the left because it has a positive 5. And the 2 is going to shift it up 2 units up. So, by the way, there's 2 things that say up. What's the difference between this one that says up and this one that says 2 up? This one means it opens up. Yeah, let me put in one more word. I forgot one important word. The value of a means whether it opens upwards or downwards. It opens up or down. If a is positive, it opens up. So that graph opens up, and it starts out by going 5 to the left and 2 up. So let's draw the graph of that example. So let's start from the middle and go 5 to the left, and then 2 up. That's where it starts. By the way, what are the coordinates of that point to where it starts? If you have 5 left and 2 up, what point are you at? That'll be negative 5 comma 2, right? Now, from that point, we're going to do a quadratic function. So it looks like well, it's hard to describe what it looks like. It looks kind of like a bowl, a goldfish bowl or something like that. There we go. So it looks either like a bowl going up or a bowl going down. So this one's going to open up. So it's going to be a bowl going up like that. Sweet. Bless you. Welcome. That was actually maybe my first time saying bless you, because I didn't actually grow up saying bless you to people, because like my family had never learned that. But I was just talking to somebody in my office like 30 minutes ago about I need to start saying bless you to people. So that was my first time practicing. You're welcome. Let's see. So let's do another one though. Let's just hypothetically say that it was a negative 7, and let's just hypothetically say it was a negative 3 squared plus, and then no, actually, sorry, a negative negative 1. What does that quadratic function do? Has a negative value for a, and it has a negative value for b, and it has a negative value for c. What happened? What does that do? What does the negative value for a mean? It opens what way? Down. And what does the negative value for b mean? It's still a shift, but it doesn't shift left, it shifts right. So it's going to go 3 to the right. And then what does the negative value for c mean? That's going to shift down. So it's going to go 1 unit down. So it's going to go I'm gonna put it on the same graph, but in a different color, so you can detect the difference. So if I go 1 down and I go 3 to the right, it's gonna start right there, right? What's the coordinates of that point that's 1 down and 3 right? It'd be 3 and then -1, right? Then what do I do next to finish the problem? What does the graph of the problem look like? Is it up and downwards or upwards? Downwards. So it looks like this. Whoops. My hand was very shaky. There we go. Perfect. Great. So we did the standard forms of those two graphs. So once you do that, you can also figure out something called the range. The range, it's like the mountain range. So, oh, it's actually going to ask you one more question. I forgot about this. It's going to ask you one more question. It wants you to find an. Do you remember what the word intercept means? So you figured out all the new stuff, but this is an old thing. Remember from when you do graphed lines, do you remember how to find an intercept? Like point you like tell me where an intercept is on these graphs. That's the intercept, right? Is that an x-axis intercept or a y-axis intercept? Y-intercept, correct. So how do I find where that y-intercept is? Do you remember, does anybody remember from a long, long time ago? Like thousands of days, like thousands of minutes ago. How do you find a y-intercept? So what is that y-intercept? How do you find a y-intercept? You have to plug in what? To find a y-intercept, you have to plug in a 0 for the opposite letter. So to find a y-intercept, you have to plug in a 0 for x, right? Like that. So you have to take a point or a table of values, you plug in 0 for the x value, and then you calculate the y value. So let's do that. So plug in 0 for this value of x, and then work through it in your head. Inside the parentheses first, what is 0 plus 5? What's 0 plus 5? 5. Keep that in your brain, the number 5. Now do squared. What is 5 squared? 25. 25. Keep that number in your brain, 25. Now do 25 times 3. What's that number? 75. And now do 75 plus 2. 77. So the y-intercept is 77. It's too bad it's not 67. Okay, so there's 77. Or technically it should be 077. So that's the y-intercept. We could also find the other y-intercept. Would that be boring or should I do it? Should I skip that part or should I do that as well? I guess it's too boring. So you get the idea. Just plug in 0 for x, and then you can calculate the y-intercept. And then finally, last but not least, though, they do ask you one more question. There's a part B to these questions, just to make sure that you really understood. They ask you the range. And range, who remembers domain and range? Domain is horizontal, and range, what's range? Vertical. So the reason they don't ask you the domain of these is that's the easy part. The domain of a quadratic function, so it goes all the way left and all the way right to negative infinity to infinity. So the domain of a quadratic function is always negative infinity to infinity. But the range of it's not always the same though. The range of a graph is bottom to top. So well, let's find the range of these. First, I need to make some space. Make some space. By the way, do you ever wish that you could live in space? Like outer space? By the way, have you ever heard the song that said life would be better on Saturn? Do you think life would really be better on Saturn? I think it'd be kind of unsurvivable on Saturn. That'd be like if you went to the worst place. I mean, it looks pretty, but life probably wouldn't actually be better on Saturn. Okay, so there we go. There's that. Let's find the range of the blue graph. Yeah, let's do the range of the blue graph. So what's the range of the blue graph? What's the bottom and what's the top? Well, and remember, range also means the y values, because y values are vertical. So the bottom point of this, what's the y value of the bottom point? 2. So the range starts at 2. And then what's the highest value of the blue graph? It doesn't have a highest value. It actually just goes to infinity. So technically the highest value would be called infinity because it goes and goes without stopping. So 2 to infinity Well, my infinity is really the worst one ever, but do I put a bracket around the 2 or parentheses? Well, does it touch the 2? Yes, it touches that point at 2, so there's a bracket. The bracket means it touches the point and it equals the point. How about infinity? Does it touch infinity? No, you can't really touch infinity. So that's the range of the blue one. Now what's the range of the red one? What's the range of the red one? What's the red one's range? So what's the lowest point of the red graph? Well, the red graph doesn't have a lowest point because it goes lower and lower forever. So the red graph has a range that starts at a low point of negative infinity. And then from the low to high, what's the high point on the red graph? Y equals -1, right? So the range of the red graph is -1. And should I have a bracket around the negative infinity or a parentheses? Parentheses, because you can't really touch infinity. Should I have a bracket around the -1? Yes, because that point is a point, it's just, the graph actually touches that point, and then after it touches that point, it goes back down. So since the highest value of the graph equals that point, you put a bracket there. Because when it actually equals the value, then you put a bracket there. So we're done with that. Perfect. Any questions? So now you know how to find the minimum and the maximum of a quadratic formula. Sweet. Okay. So let me skip ahead a little bit and see if you can do a problem even if it's in the wrong order. Let's try 7. 7 f of x equals, by the way, did you realize that I put up all your future assignments? I got them all figured out for you. So has anybody actually looked ahead to, like, out of curiosity, to look at what the future will hold? Cool. So 16 minus parentheses x minus 2 squared. This one's in the wrong order. So can you still identify what the numbers are for A, B, and C, even though they're in the wrong order? So what's the value of A? Well, A, because this is in standard form, but it's not in the right order of standard form though. What is the value? There's 3 values. There's 16, there's -2, and what's the third value that you can't really see? -1, right? So which of those 3 values is actually A? The A is the number that's right beside, it's the coefficient, which means right beside the thing that's squared. That's A. So which of those is A? The -1. Yep. And B is a number that is inside the parentheses. So what's the number of B? -2. What's the number C? 16. So A tells you if it opens up or opens down. So does this open up or does it open down? Down, correct. And then B tells you if it moves right or moves left. So does this move right or does it move? No, sorry. B tells you if it moves left or if it moves right. So does this move left or does it move right? It moves right because negative means right. It feels backwards, but that's just the way it works. So negative means it moves right. And C means it moves up or down. So does this move up or does it move down? Up, correct. So remember, for C, a positive means up. And for B, a positive means left. So just be careful the way that you interpret them. By the way, if I put the word taxi in front of this actually spells taxi cab. So that's kind of cool. But that's a distraction though. So if I draw the graph of it, where would my starting point be? If it moves up 16, that would be starting at 16. Well, that's too far to count, so I'm just going to go backwards. Hold on. So if it goes up to 16, and then if it goes right 2, it would start at the point 2, 16, right? And then it opens down or up. It opens down. So it's going to open downwards from there. Boom. Boom. Sweet. So then I'm already done with the graph, so I know it opens downwards and I know where it starts. Those are the most important parts. But then we have to find one other, we need to find one other intercept though. So what is one other intercept of this graph? Either the y one or the x one, either one. We can find the y-intercept or the x-intercept for this graph. Which one's easier? Probably the y. So let's go ahead and find the y-intercept. How do I find the y-intercept? How do I find the y-intercept? Plug in 0 for x, right? So if I take a point and I plug in 0 for x, then I plug 0 in, and what's 0 minus 2? 0 minus 2 is -2. Now do -2 squared. What's -2 squared? 4, right? Now do 4 times -1. What's 4 times -1? That's -4. Then do 16 minus 4, that's 12. So the y-intercept is 12. So this point should be plotted at 0, 12. And you only have to plot, I think you have to start with the vertex, and then you have to plot at least one intercept. So once you plot those 2 points, the rest of the graph should finish automatically for you. And then the last question it asks you is, what's the function's range? So who can tell me the function's range? Negative infinity to 16 with the bracket on the 16. Yes, perfect. Okay, that's really cool. Now I'm going to teach you a really neat formula though as well for you. So one thing that's actually a little bit dishonest that they don't tell you about with these formulas is most math equations are not actually nicely written in standard form, where they have like the square in parentheses, they have like the number next to it and things like that. A lot of problems that you do in real life are just going to be like this. They're going to be like number 8. So number 8, x squared plus 2x minus 3. That's what most questions are going to look like in real life. Like it'll just say, there's your function, and there's what it is. That is not in standard form. So that means that now the one thing that's true is the value of A is equal to 1 in that form, right? And B is equal to 2 and C is equal to 3. The value of A is still the same in both standard form and non-standard form. So the value of A is still 1. So we can say that since A equals 1, we do know that it opens up because A is positive. However, though the value of B and C are not the same. The value of B and C are not the same when it's in this form. They're not the same as they are when it's in the other form. So this value of B and this value of the C, these values of C, they are not applicable. Not applicable. Have you ever seen the word n/a? That means like not applicable. Those values of B and C are not actually the same values of B and C as when it's in standard form, because this is not factored into parentheses or anything like that. Wow, that looks like it says opens up instead of opens up. By the way, does it say, have you ever seen this store that's called Pet Smart? Is it supposed to be Pet Smart or Pet Smart? Have you ever thought about that? Okay, so opens up, not opens up. So, by the way, do you say college algebra or college algebra? Okay, so how do I find the vertex of it though if that's not the value of B and C? Because since that's not the value of B, I can't say that it moves left 2 units left, and I can't say it moves 3 units down. How do I figure it out? So this is where you have to, there is a value to convert that value of B and C into the correct values. So this is a formula called the vertex formula. And it's how you find where a quadratic function will be moved, like left or right or up or down, even if you don't know the standard form of it. So the vertex formula, it's a lot like the quadratic formula, but it's without the square root though. So what's the first part of the quadratic formula? Negative b, right? Then leave out the square root and just put the bottom of the quadratic formula. Who remembers what's in the bottom of the quadratic formula? It just has 2a, right? If you do the first term and the last term of the quadratic formula, that's called the vertex formula. So we're going to plug in the value for b of 2. the value of A is 1. Then you got -2/2, which equals -1. That actually tells you the first point of what's called the vertex. So it tells you the x value of the vertex. Now, in order to find the y value, we have to plug in the x value. So take this x value that you got and plug it into the equation. So what's -1 squared plus 2 times -1 minus 3? So plug that in on your paper. So you get -1 squared plus 2 times -1 minus 3. That's equal to +1, -2, -3. That's equal to that's equal to 1 minus 5. If I combine the two negatives together, 1 minus 5 is -4. So the vertex is actually -1, -4. So that means it moves down 1 and it moves down 1 to the, well, not down 1. I'm stupid. The first number is not down, it's left. So that means it moves left 1, and it moves down 4. So the graph would start at the point -1, -4. So that's where it would start. -1, -4. And then from that point, what direction does it go from that point? Does it open down or open up? It opens up because A is still valid. So A is equal to 1. So since A is positive, it opens up. So start from the point -1, -4, and it opens up from there. Boom, like that. Presto. And now notice, remember, that these values of B and C they were 2 and 3. Those are not the same values of the actual how far it goes left and how far it goes down. So these values of B and C are not the ones that tell you how far left and how far down it goes. If you have a quadratic equation that is in the normal form and not the standard form, you can't use the values of B and C to figure out how far left and down it goes. You have to use the vertex formula instead. Any questions? Okay, perfect. Well, we could do, let's do just a little quick example because we only have 3 minutes left. What we're going to be doing next time is going to look like this. Let's say x squared plus 2x plus 10, and we're going to want to find the maximum value of that. So when you want to find the maximum value of a quadratic, I forgot, let me put a negative in front of it actually. Going to find the maximum value of that, you have to find where it reaches the highest point. The maximum value also can be solved by using the vertex formula as well. So you're just going to do -b over 2a, which equals negative times 2 over 2 times -1. I made it come out to 1 because we get -2 over -2, which is 1. Plug in 1 into the formula. So what is the formula's value if you plug 1 into it? So it's -1 squared plus 2 times 1 plus 10. So you get -1 plus 2 plus 10. That's -1 plus 12, which is 11. So the maximum value of that one is 11, which means it's like an 11 out of 10. So keep up the good work and thanks for paying attention with the 11 out of 10 today. And did everybody get signed in on the sign-in sheet that got passed around? Okay, if you missed it, come up here to the front. I'm going to put the sign-in sheet right over here. Make sure you sign your name on it. If you don't sign your name on it, then you won't be credited for today. So make sure you come in here and sign your name on that page on the right side.
Oh my God. You know exactly what.